Hello and good morning, CTS267 Section 840 students for the Spring 2017 semester at Anne Arundel Community College. This is the CCNP TSHOOT course, and this morning's video tutorial and solution set is going to be for challenge activity number 16, where we're taking a look at the final scenario in the Bank of Polona network setup here. So this is going to be the fourth and final activity for the Bank of Polona. And so let's go ahead and dive in and see what they've got on tap for us. So we're still with Secnik Networking Limited, and we've been working in this network, and we've seen that they've transitioned from EIGRP. If you remember, we were redistributing. Branch 3 was a new branch brought online. It was running EIGRP. And so now it looks like over the weekend, she's reconfigured, Tina, the customer engineer, has reconfigured IPv6 routing from RIP-NG to OSPF v3 in order to run OSPF on IPv4 and IPv6. So she attempted to do some fine-tuning, and so she needs your help to fix things before people come to work. All right, so the first ticket, PC0 does not have connectivity to IPv6 internet sites, and so we're going to have to get that IPv6 address that we're going to be pinging. And then this one here, although Tina configured the branches as totally stubby, all branch routers still have a lot of inter-area routes in their routing table. And so this one right here, this is definitely going to be the low-hanging fruit. Because just reading this, a couple things should be popping into your head right now. So if we were doing the shoot from the hip method, what I would be saying right now is, okay, so she configured them as totally stubby, but they're still seeing inner area routes in the routing table. So did she actually configure them as totally stubby with the stub no summary command, or did she leave the no summary off? And in fact, let me think about that for a second. If she left the no summary off, we would see the type 3s. So the question would be, did she actually configure this properly for each of the areas? And so this would actually be, this is going to be a very easy one to sort out here. And so we're going to look at that one first. But before we do, let's see, how do we get onto the different branch routers, and let's see if the IP addressing information has changed here. So it looks like 192.168.1, let me write this down, 192.168.1.2 and .3 for the 3 branches. We know the password. My guess is, yep, we're going to have to telnet from the HQ router in order to get there. And there are the OSPF areas. And you can see here it's got this little note, totally stubby. And so for it to be totally stubby, what would have to happen is we would have to have on the HQ router, because remember, these are all of the non-area 0 areas here, right? So branch 1 area 1, branch 2 area 2, branch 3 area 3. So the HQ router is serving as our ABR, our area border router, and it's on the area border router where that area 1 stub no summary command is going to have to reside. And we'll talk about the semantics of the branch routers here as to whether or not we need to put area 1 stub no summary. So let's go ahead, let's get onto the HQ router here, and let's go from user exec to privilege exec, and then let's telnet over to 192.168. Make sure I get this right, .1.101, and that should put us onto CISCO, onto the branch 1 router. And so we'll get into privilege exec here as well. All right, so let's go ahead and say show IP route OSPF, and let's see what we see here. All right, so we can see we've got inter-area routing information here, right? No external routing information, just inter-area routing information. So clearly, if it was to be a totally stub, all we would be receiving would be the default OIA route, right? And this would be generated by the ABR. So let's take a look at show run section router OSPF. Let's see what we have here. Now, so here's what's interesting. So area 1 stub no summary. And you can clearly see at this point what they're trying to do in terms of deceiving you. So the area 1 stub no summary command is not, well, let me make sure I'm clear here. So this command is not needed on the branch router, right? The command that's needed is area 1 stub. You don't need the no summary option. And in fact, putting the no summary option here, and the analogy I usually give is it's sort of like the difference between saying, between using who and whom, right? So, or when someone asks you, oh, how are you? And I always say, well, I'm good, right? Well, the proper way to respond to that question is, oh, I'm doing well. But I very rarely, I never say that. I always say I'm doing good. And you still know what I mean, right? You still understand what I'm saying to you. It's just that that's not the proper way to say it. I should say, I'm doing well. But I don't. I just say, yeah, I'm doing good. How about you? Right? And it's the same thing here. You can put area 1 stub no summary, but this is just like saying, yeah, I'm doing good. Right? So we all know what you mean. It's like you're saying, I'm good. We all know what you mean, right? But it's not really the proper way to say it. What you should be saying is, and again, remember, this is not on the ABR. This is on the router that is in area 1 that is not the ABR. All you need to say is area 1 stub. And this is like saying, I'm doing well, because that's the proper way to say it. So this would work, right? But it's not proper. Okay, it's not the proper way to say it. So let's go ahead and let's sort this out. So the first issue is you can see that they're kind of, you know, if they get you looking here, you're going to think to yourself, oh, wait a minute, it says area 1 stub no summary. And this is correct. So that's the command to do the totally stub configuration. The problem is it's on the wrong router, right? So let's back out here and let's get to the HQ router, and let's say show run section router OSPF. And as you can see, and this is exactly what we anticipated, and let me change the color here. We're going to switch it over to yellow. It pops a little better off of the black, right? So on the ABR, the area border router, because remember, it's the area border router that is making the decision as to whether or not all of those individual type 3 inter-area routes are going to be sent in to the individual areas. And so we've got the command correct here, but we're missing the no summary. So again, this would not work, right? This is not going to be totally stubby. We have to have the no summary command, because no summary says no type 3 LSAs. And the type 3 LSA is the summary LSA. Whoops, the summary LSA. And that's what's generating all of these entries here. Is the ABR is receiving the routing information from the different areas, from area 2, from area 3, and that information is then being flooded into area 1. And in fact, if area 2 and area 3 also have stub no summary on the router in the area that's connected to the ABR, they are also going to be seeing all of these OIA routes, these inter-area OSPF routes. And so we want no summary type 3 LSAs. And remember, the summary, when we say type 3 summary LSA or no summary, we're not talking about IP address summarization. right? And again, to be clear with that, so, you know, when you have 192.168.1.0/24, and then .2.0/24, and .3.0/24, and I ask you, what is the summary of these three networks? That is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about with the summary information is it is a summary of the OSPF topology in the other areas, okay, that are not Area 1, Area 2, or Area 3. And so that's the information that is being summarized. And so this, again, to sort of build on this conversation, this again is another example of OSPF displaying distance vector characteristics and traits. Because again, remember, we talk about that link state database and oh, how the link state database has to be the same in a given area, right? But as soon as you go to multi-area OSPF, like we do in the drawing that we have, and if I were to clear this off and come back to the diagram, as soon as we go to multi-area OSPF, what do we have? Here is the ABR. So basically, all that Area 1 knows is the summary information being provided by the ABR HQ, right? So Branch 1 doesn't have the full link state database of Area 2 or Area 3. It simply gets the summary information. And in fact, from Area 1, right, so PC1 trying to reach PC2, all that the Branch 1 router knows is that, yeah, I know how to get there, but the recursion is going to tell me to just get to the ABR. So as long as I can get to the ABR, I'm going to let the ABR worry about all of the details and the specifics, because I've just been given some summary information here. So I'm coming across tunnel 1 to get to the ABR, and after that point, it's like, you know, you're just throwing it over the fence. Throwing it over the fence to the ABR saying, hey, here, I'm trying to get to this network. You said you knew how to get there because you're giving me summary, a type 3 LSA on how to get there. So here, you deal with it. You know how to get there. That is distance vector behavior right there, because Branch 1 and any other router over here in Area 1 doesn't know the full information for Area 2 or Area 3. It just has a summary. And so again, it's sort of this routing by rumor where Branch 1, yeah, he just knows what he's being told by HQ. He's not actually receiving Type 1 and Type 2 LSAs from Branch 3. He's just getting, Type 1 and Type 2 LSAs from Branch 2. He's just getting Type 3 LSAs from the ABR. And so they basically have the configuration backwards here. Again, from a technical perspective, it's backwards. So how do we fix this? Again, very easy fix here. We're going to come in and say router OSPF 1, and I'm going to say Area 1 stub, and if I were to do a question mark, you can see it's no summary, right? And then Area 2 stub, no summary. Because without the no summary flag, it's only a stubby area. And what that means is there'll be no Type 5 information in there. We can't see Type 7 information in there. Since there's no 5s, excuse me, we see no 7s. So, but it would allow all of the individual inter-area Type 3 LSAs to be flooded in. And we don't want that because there's only a single path out, right? So we looked at the diagram. How many different ways can these branches get out to the HQ router? There's only a single individual path out for these guys, right? It's through this connection right here. So branch 1's got to come this way, branch 2's got to come this way, and so does branch 3. So they don't need all of the individual Type 3 LSA routing information that they're going to be receiving. All these branches need is a default route to come to the HQ router, and that's what this achieves. So do show run section router OSPF, and we take a look, and there we go. Area 1, 2, and 3. we've got the stub, no summary. So now what we should do, and I don't know if this is part of our solution or not, but to be technically correct, and to be well, right, we're going to telnet to 192.168.1.101. Let me double check that. Yep, 101. And we're going to get logged in as admin with the password of Cisco, get into privilege exec with the password of Cisco. All right, so we're going to get into global config, router OSPF 1, and we're going to say, let's make sure we see here, do show run section router OSPF. And we're going to say, and actually what we want to say is, how would we tweak this? I want to make sure I don't get cut off here. So no area 1 stub, no summary. And again, we don't need, right, on the router that is connected to the ABR, we don't need it to say no summary. All we need it to say is area 1 stub. That is it. And that will resolve the issue. So the area 1 stub no summary is needed on the ABR. Remember, because it's the ABR that is making that determination as to which LSA types will be flooded into the non-area 0 areas. And so now when I say do show IP route OSPF, what do we see? Exactly what we need to see. A single default type 3 LSA. And that is it. So this is how we resolve the problem. So if that was the problem there, my guess is that if we telnet over to 192.168.2.101, let's go in as admin, and we'll say Cisco, get into privilege exec, show run section router OSPF. Yeah, and again, not needed. Router OSPF 1, we say no area 2 stub. And I'm sure that the reason they have this here isn't because the individuals at Cisco that put this lab together didn't understand the semantics of what you do on the non-ABR router. It's because they're trying to get you to look at this and think, oh, wait a minute, no, this should be working, because I've got my area 2 stub no summary or my area 1 stub no summary on the routers that are connected to the ABR. But that's not where the no summary option is needed. And so then let's jump off of this router and then let's go fix, what are we, admin and CISCO. Let's go fix branch 3. Let's get into privilege exec, show run section router OSPF. And yes, global config, router OSPF 1, no area 3, stub, no summary. Whoops, stub, no summary. And then area 3, stub, and do show IP route, and do show IP route OSPF. And there we go, right? And so that's the solution. The no summary option to make it totally stub is required on the ABR, because again, it's the ABR controlling what is flooded from an LSA perspective into the different areas. All right, and so now I've actually forgotten our first troubleshooting scenario here. First ticket was, oh, PC0 does not have connectivity to IPv6 internet sites. All right, so we know it's an IPv6 issue, and what did they change? They changed from RipNG. Okay, so they changed from RipNG to OSPF v3. So first things first, we'll go ahead and start from a bottom-up perspective. So let's come down here to PC0. Let's get into privilege exec, and let's say show IPv6 interface brief. Let's see what we've got here. All right, you can see that the link local was generated via the EUI64 method with the FFFE here in the middle. In fact, if we were to say, show run interface Ethernet, 00, you can see that we've got the IPv6 enable command here, and then we've got the IPv6 address. Now, quick question. Is IPv6 enable required if I put the IPv6 address in here? And the answer is no. I don't need both, because, and actually with IOU, let's check on this, because I'm curious to see. interface Ethernet 00. Let's say no IPv6 enable. Right? So I just said no IPv6 enable. I'm going to shut the port down. And then let's bring it back up and let's make sure we still have do show IPv6 interface brief. And we do. We still get that EUI 64. Was it different? Let's see. 2 Baker 00 at the end. 2 Baker 00. It looks the same. Alpha 8 FF0Z. Alpha 8. Alpha 8, Alpha Baker Baker. Yeah, it looks the same. But again, you can see the IPv6 enable command, because we're putting in a global unicast address, it would auto-magically generate that for us. If I was to jump over to a real Cisco router here, and let me pull up Secure CRT real quick. So here I am. Let's see, what's one of the routers I'm not really using here? Router 8. Right, so if I come over here to router 8, and I go from user exec to privilege exec into global config, and let's check do show IPv6 interface brief so that you know I didn't have this pre-canned. So here you go. You can clearly see fast Ethernet 00. There is no IPv6 addressing assigned. If I get into interface fast Ethernet 00, and not fast Ethernet 090, if I go into fast Ethernet 00, all I need to say is IPv6 address, let's say 2001, whoops, ::8, and slash, let's do a 64. Right? So as soon as I assign that IPv6 global unicast address, iOS is smart enough to know that you have to have a link local address on the interface, right? If you're doing IPv6, the one address that is mandatory is the link local address. And it will assign that link local address using EUI 64. Now, what's the best practice? Well, obviously, if I were to give you that string right there and say, hey, what router is this coming from? You would have no clue, right? So best practices, let's say IPv6 address FE80 : :8 link local. So now when we run that command, and if you were to be asked, well, what router is that coming from? Again, in the scenario, with these routers that we have here presented to us, you could easily look at that and say, oh, well, that's probably router 8, right? Because that's a best practice, well-known convention right there, is to take control of the IPv6 addressing, even though you have the benefit and the convenience of EUI 64 to go ahead and auto-magically generate that address for you. You should probably take control of it and put something meaningful in there. So last thing, do show IP, and actually do show run interface fast Ethernet 00. Are we going to see IPv6 enable? No, we're not. Because again, we don't need IPv6 enable if I'm putting a global unicast address on there, because it will auto-magically generate an EUI 64 link local for me. So let's see what IPv6 enable does. Does it put a full-blown IPv6 global unicast address on there, or does it only put a link local address on there? And we can see this with, let's do fast Ethernet 01 here. So if I go into interface fast Ethernet 01 and I say IPv6 enable, and it's linked to a VRF, so I guess I was doing something on this router. So let's try, we'll do serial 000, interface serial 000, and let's say IPv6 enable. All right, so now do show IPv6 interface brief. And what do we see? Do we see a global unicast address here? We don't. Now, this isn't connected to anything, but again, this is to show you that IPv6 enable by itself on an interface doesn't generate for me a global unicast address. It's generating for me a link local address, right? So again, we don't necessarily have to have IPv6 enable. Now, if I'm anticipating that I'm going to be receiving the global unicast information from a router advertisement, in that case, the IPv6 enable command would do what we need it to do. But by itself, right? By itself, like you saw right here, all I'm going to get is a link local out of it. So I don't have to have it. But again, I'm probably getting that information from a router advertisement somewhere. So let's go ahead, let's confirm that we don't have internet connectivity, and let's get the IPv6 address that we're probably going to need to test here. And do they give us an internet address? All right, HQ advertises the IPv6 default route via RipNG. So this is actually legacy information here because we've transitioned from RipNG. But you know what? I will bet you, because when we did this scenario, when we did the same scenario with RipNG or something similar to this, that was the problem, was HQ was not doing the default originate. So what is an IPv6 internet address? Did I go buy it here? So they don't give us... Let's go to the bottom. Yeah, so I don't see the IPv6 address that we should be using to test for internet connectivity. Let's pull up the scenario here. Maybe at the bottom of the... And there we go. There it is. All right, and it's this incredibly inconvenient D1A5 C92D::1. All right, that's the same from the other exercise. So again, the shoot from the hip method. So we'll go bottom up, right? So we've got our IPv6 address. Let's confirm. Can I ping 2001 DB8 colon D1A5 colon C92D::1? No, right? We don't have any connectivity. And so kind of making assumptions and knowing this environment and knowing what just happened in this environment, let's check to see if on the HQ router, when they made the change, and we looked at this earlier, show run section router OSPF, and there's the IPv6 router OSPF. Let's say show run begin IPv6 router. And so here is the IPv6 router OSPF, and you can see that there is no default information originate. So let's confirm. Let me make sure on router 1, show IPv6 route. Let's see what these guys are getting. Yeah, so they have this guy gets a single IPv6 OSPF learned route. Let's check router 2. Show IPv6 route. Let's see what he sees. Yeah, so neither of the... So this has got to be the exact same issue, at least initially. That's what it looks like. This is the same issue we ran into with RipNG, is that we don't have a default route coming down. So sticking with the kind of the bottom-up approach here, if I go back to PC0, we see that we've got the IP address, the interface is up. Let's see, can I ping, and what is an address here on router 1? How about a show IPv6 interface brief? And we want an interface brief. All right, so can I ping C0A8::FD? Can I ping 2001:DB8:C0A8::FD? So I can. So again, we're lacking a default route, very similar to what we saw with the RipNG. So let's resolve that. So we're going to say IPv6 router OSPF 1, and we need to put in here default DEFAULT information originate. Now let's come down to router 1. Whoops, and we want show IP route OSPF. And are we... I'm sorry, not show IP route, show IPv6 route OSPF. And there we go. We get this OE2, right? This external type 2 OSPF route. That is our default route, the : 0. So now let's see with PC0, does that resolve the problem? Let's see, can we ping? So can we still ping? We can hit that address. Can I ping the internet? And so we can't ping the internet. So this is Interesting. So that default should have sorted that out. Okay, these guys got the default route. Show IPv6 OSPF neighbor 192 out Ethernet 01. That's right. And show IPv6 OSPF neighbor, and that looks correct. So 2 and 1 and over Ethernet. And I'm wondering, we turn that off as part of the previous, and so there is no adjacency through the switch. So let me do this. Let's see what we've got here. Show MAC address table. All right, so it sees it out, Ethernet 01. All right, so what I'm looking for now is there any kind of show run interface Ethernet 00? Yeah, so we're running VRRP. So I'm wondering if the adjacency required, let's go back to PC0 here. I'm going to trace this out and let's see where we get. So we're going to trace and see which router we go to, because we have VRRP running, but that's for our IPv4, and I don't see HSRP. Oh, you know what? So what we had just talked about in terms of the router advertisements. All right, so now it's becoming clear as to why we have the IPv6. So we're not getting any on PC0. This, I should have checked this earlier. So let's go ahead and say here. So we go to FD and then it bombs out. Are we not seeing show IPv6 route? Yeah, okay, well it got it. Okay, so it is getting it through neighbor discovery because IPv6 is configured there. So this is interesting. And it's got to be then that, so what it has to be that these interfaces, these Ethernet 00 interfaces, are not being advertised into OSPF, so that there's no return path for the traffic, because I can successfully make it all the way up here to the HQ, but the return traffic, and that must be why when we looked at this earlier that they had RipNG running. So let me, all right, so now we're going to go, excuse me, now we're going to go from the bottom-up approach to the, I've got a hunch here that the problem is that, yeah, there's the neighbor discovery prefix. So now this explains why we had that IPv6 enable command. And so now let's get into global config, interface Ethernet 00. It's got to be that those interfaces aren't being IPv6, OSPF 1, and this is area 0. And my guess is that router 2 is probably missing that same thing. Yes, so interface Ethernet 00, IPv6, OSPF 1, area 0. So it looks like those interfaces were not being advertised into OSPF. And so now we should be able to, so we still see the same routing information, but when we trace, now we should be able to find our way back. And let's see where we get to here. Give this a second. So then we make it out to : FE. I think FD was router 1. And there we go. Yeah, and so initially when we did this, we made it to the first hop, but we didn't see any ICMP traffic come back to us, so now I should be able to ping. Yeah, I didn't see any ICMP traffic come. There we go. So nothing was coming back. We were able to make it to the first hop and back, which was that FD. I believe when we first did the trace, or I'm sorry, FE. When we first did the trace, we made it to that interface, and that interface, if I'm not mistaken, is do show IPv6 interface brief. Is that where this FE is at? Yeah. So we came up and went through or hit router 2's Ethernet 00. But the problem is that anything beyond Ethernet 00, which was this interface right here, that's 00, the trace and the pings would work to there, but then remember, it's sending out ICMP echo requests, so the next one is going to come up to the HQ router here, but the reply is never going to make it back because those interfaces are not known in OSPF. And so the traffic would get up to the HQ router, but then on return, it would bomb out because HQ is saying, yeah, I don't know how to get to whatever the IPv6 address of that interface was. All right, well, that is going to wrap up challenge activity number 16. So we are done with the Bank of Polona. And now we're going to transition into activities, 17 through 20. The next 4 activities are Radulco Transport Limited. All right, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on Thursday evening.